Alright guys, so this is a bag of fat scraps that I got from the butcher for free. I'm going to go ahead and show you what I do with this stuff so you can do the same thing. Alright, now normally, first thing I do is I look at all the fat scraps and I check for any meat that can be salvaged. I go ahead and cut that off first. I put it in a Ziploc bag and then I throw it away in the freezer. I just let it sit in the freezer. Alright. And then I cut the fat scraps up into little pieces and put them in a crock pot. So you're going to see what that looks like in just a second. So stick with me. Alright, so this is what it looks like after I separate the meat from the fat scraps. This is all the meat that I had left. So as you can see, it's a pretty substantial amount of meat. You know, you can do whatever you want with this meat. You know, you can cut it up real thin, use it for a Philly cheesesteak sandwich. Probably this amount will probably be a good 2 or 3 sandwiches just right there alone. I like to chop it up thin, put it in soup, because a lot of the oils from the fat comes out into the soup. It makes the soup real sweet, real good flavor. And this is about the size that I cut the chunks up into. I cut the fat into, you know, manageable sizes so it'll fit in the crock pot. And so what we're going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go ahead and put this in a Ziploc bag and put it away in the freezer. And then we're going to go ahead and dump these in the crock pot and put some water in there, put it on low for about 4 or 5 hours, and I'll get back with you. Alright, so we put all the fat scraps in the crock pot. We're going to go ahead and pour the water in there. I like to fill it up all the way to the top. Alright, let's see here. Let me put a little bit more in there. Alright, and then go ahead and put that on low. Put the top on and set it aside for about 4 hours, 4 or 5 hours, and we'll come back to it. Alright, so we've had this going for quite a while. It's been quite a bit longer than 4 or 5 hours. We've had this going for, I think it's been about 8 hours. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it off. We're going to let it cool down, and then we're going to put it, once it cools down, we're going to filter all this stuff out, get the liquid nice and clear, and then we're going to go ahead and put it in the refrigerator. Alright, so this is how I'm going to filter out the fat. We'll go ahead and dump it in here. I'm going to catch the water in this bucket right here, and then I'm going to dump the fat out in these 2 bowls right here. So we'll go ahead and do that off camera, and then let you see what's next. Alright, so this is what it looks like after I filter it. Alright, caught a bunch of stuff there in the screen, and as you can see, all that stuff on top, that's going to be your tallow right there. You can see that very clear, distinct layer of oil right there. So what I'm going to do now, I'm gonna clean out the screen. All right, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to clean this out real nice and clean. I don't want any of these large particles in there, because the next thing I'm going to do, so what we're going to do is we're going to cool down this oil in the refrigerator. This is going to solidify into tallow. Then I'll be able to literally pick it up, and all that's going to be left is this liquid right here. Now this liquid is what we're going to turn into pocket soup. So I need this to be clear of particles. That's why we filter it, and that's why we're going to go ahead and clean this out. So I'm going to go ahead and clean this out real quick, and clean this out real quick. We're going to go ahead and put it in the refrigerator and get back with you. Alright, so while the tallow is in the refrigerator cooling down for the next hour, we're going to go ahead and bag this stuff up. We're going to put it in Ziploc bags and probably toss it in the freezer. Now it's real like gelatinous right now, you know, but once you put it in the refrigerator or the freezer, it'll get real solid, like kind of like tallow. It'll be real easy to cut once it gets down to like 30 degrees or 34 degrees or whatever. But there's still a little bit of oil in this. So if you wanted to, you know, I use it as dog food. My dog loves it. There's still, you know, you can see there's still meat on there, but you can also use it once it hardens up. You can cut them up in small little cubes, and you can use them to grease your pan. They're still really good for that. So there's many different things you can do with this stuff right here, but mainly, you know, I just feed it to my dog, or I use it to cook eggs or whatever. So, you know, there's still a lot of oil in there. So if you wanted to go ahead and run this through the crock pot one more time, you could. But just to save electricity, I don't do that. I just bag it up and save it for later. So, all right. So we're going to go ahead and wait an hour for the tallow to harden up, and I'll get right back with you. Alright guys, so after about an hour of sitting in the refrigerator, your tallow will solidify. So I like to just go ahead and put it in a sieve like that into a big bowl and let the water kind of just drain off into the bowl. That way you're not getting, the tallow isn't getting wet. It'll help prevent it from going rancid. You know, just let it dry out in here like this for a little while, okay? And then we're gonna go ahead and put this in a pot and boil it, not boil it, but heat it up to the point to where it liquefies again. We're gonna put the stove on low because we don't want to damage the fat. We just want to, you know, we just want to render it back down to a liquid oil, so that we can put it in our little tallow jar. Make it look nice. Instead of a bunch of chunks, it'll be a nice solid, you know, nice solid jar of tallow. So what you really want to make sure that you get all of these little bits and pieces of fat out. I usually filter the liquid through the sieve, and then what I do is I'll take the liquid, I'll clean this out. I'll clean all the oil out of the crock pot again, okay, and then I'll pour the liquid back in here, and then we'll put the crock pot back on low, but you leave the lid off, okay, and you let the water evaporate, and that's going to take a couple days. After a couple days, you'll get gelatin in the bottom of the can. You want to make sure you turn it off after about 24 hours. You probably just want to turn it off and let it air dry, and then once you can go like this to the crock pot, and you'll see it jiggle like jello. Like right now it's liquid, it's not gelatin, but once it starts to evaporate, all the water starts to evaporate, all that'll be left is gelatin. And then you take that gelatin, you put a fan on it for a couple days, and it turns into pocket soup. And so we'll go ahead and do that now. Alright, so I've cleaned out the crock pot, I have filtered the liquid, and now the tallow is rendering back into oil. Once that turns back into liquid, then I'll go ahead and pour it in my tallow jar. It's probably going to be more than I have room for, but we'll go ahead and take care of that, no big deal. So stay tuned, and after we do that, and we'll go ahead and put this back on the crock pot, put it on low, and we'll wait a couple days. Alright, so we got the rest of the liquid put back in the crock pot. The lid is off because we want to have the water evaporate from the crock pot to leave behind only the collagen, I think it is, or the gelatin. And so then I'm going to go ahead and put it on low. I'm going to go to sleep, and in the morning this liquid should be reduced substantially, and if it's reduced enough, I might just decide to turn it off when I wake up. But you really want to be careful not to over evaporate the liquid, the remaining liquid here, because you can burn the pocket soup, and it leaves a bad flavor if you do that. So, as you can see, there's still, little pieces of tallow in here, left and right, a couple little pieces that I couldn't really filter out. Not too big of a deal. Most of the time when the water reduces, these will, stick to the side, and it's usually not a big deal, but I'll probably try to scoop some of the big pieces out with like a spoon or something. So we're going to go ahead and let this sit here overnight while I go to sleep, and we'll get back with you in the morning. Alright, so it might take a few days for it to get to this stage, but watch as I tap the side here. That's how you can tell it's the gelatin now. Watch, I'll tip the pot, and you'll see it crinkle up over here, and it won't fully go down, so it's not water. You see that? See how it crinkles up right there? And it's not all going, down like a normal water would. Here. See it? That's how you know you're getting close to it becoming a gelatin. And once you get it to this point, you just let it sit for, a few more days, and it'll eventually get a little bit thicker to the point to where you can take it out and then put it on like a piece of cloth, or I put it on saran wrap sometimes because it's easy to take off of the saran wrap. And I just let it dry. I put it underneath the fan, and it dries very quickly. You can see a couple little pieces of fat here, some tallow that I just didn't scrape off. I'm going to go ahead and scrape that off and let it sit here for a few more days. Now, it took a couple days for it to get to this point. I left it on low overnight, and then when I woke up, I realized it hadn't evaporated. The water hadn't evaporated enough, so I left it on for about half a day again, and it was to the point to where it was low, but it still wasn't gelatin. So I just turned it off at probably around 4 p.m. that day, and I let it sit here it's been sitting here for 2 days, and now it's finally gelatin. So it's still at the stage where it has a lot of water in it, so I'm gonna let it sit here until I can literally scoop it out, with my hands, and it's not, it won't go through the cracks. It'll be a thick gelatin. So I'm gonna, like I said, I'm gonna go ahead and scrape this fat off here that you can see on the surface, and just let it sit for a few more days. That's where we're at. Alright, so this batch didn't turn out too well. The gelatin smells bad, looks bad. I'm not going to want to eat that. So we're going to go ahead and dump this out. But let me just go ahead and show you what some of it looks like when it does work out. These are the little flakes that I've had from other batches. Sometimes it doesn't work out, but in these instances, these are 2 different batches, as you can see here. And that's, I just leave it in these Ziploc bag, and whenever I want to make soup, I just take some of it out, put it in hot water, and that's it. It's good to go. So thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for listening, and go ahead and like, comment, subscribe, and share the video with your friends.